So hello and welcome to the 18th episode of the Boar Hat Tavern Podcast, a podcast all about 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross. I'm your host, Daz, and I'm joined today by the co-host of the podcast, Sandyy and Novage. Today on the show, we have a few new things to cover. We've got a new festival, Holy War Festival banner that just came out today, which is Festival Executioner Zeldris and Mage Chandler, I believe are their official titles. We're also going to talk a little bit about game fatigue because it's been a hot topic as of late, and the game's been out for a while, so it's no longer bright and shiny and new. So this is something that happens to all gacha games over time. And in the end, we're going to do 20 questions, a little fun game that we're going to hopefully get through. Novage told me he wants to win that. So again, it's a team effort, Novage, just a mental note. But before we get into the show, Sandy, I know you've had a rough week at work. How's that been going?
Oh my goodness, theme park. So we opened up this weekend to the general public, and ramping up, it's been quite difficult because of staffing and everything. But just this weekend, I had multiple mental breakdowns from my staff. I had a staff member crying in the funnel cake place. I had another staff member crying where the icy machines were, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So it was chaotic, but they got through it. They're superstars. We made money, we made revenue. So yeah, it was difficult, and now ramping up Memorial Day weekend coming this week. So hopefully they don't break down on me again.
Well, hopefully these are just like, I'm going to say growing pains, but maybe reopening pains. You guys get back into the groove. But hey, now you can relax and just enjoy hosting the podcast for the next hour or so. I like that you still got a smile on your face, even though, you had a tough week by the sounds of it. And it sounds like you're not the only one who had a interesting time at work over the past few days. Novage, what does I hear about some sort of dog on the loose?
Yes. So our business, we don't allow like house pets inside. And so there's an area where people that are coming into the business, they're able to put it in like a kennel area. And unfortunately, this has never happened. I've been there for a very, very, very long time. And the dog got out, and it was like a one-year-old Yorkie. And she evaded our security staff and other staff. And she got to the point where the business actually sits on like 400 plus acres, and the like 90% of that is like undeveloped. It's like mountains and trees, and she got out to that point. Like she went to like our parking lots and went out there, and she was in the hills. She was not answering to anyone's voice, and I know I mentioned last time I was promoted, so I'm like, yes, I'm responsible. My staff made an error. And so I was like at the front of it. I had to deal with the owner. I was, I spent all day. It took 11 hours of my time looking through those mountains. And, we had a few sightings of her. Her coat was like the same color of the hillsides and the grass that's out there. So it's like she would jump out, see her, then she would run away. She wasn't even answering to her name or even the owners calling her. It was a journey. I saw like over like 15 different deers that I startled because I was looking for her out there. It got to the nighttime, and doing the last rounds in hopes that she would be too scared to be up there. She'll go more towards the buildings with the lights. And so after 11 hours, I called it, and just the graveyard security shifts were going to just kind of keep an eye out. And eventually she came down. In the morning, we were able to, reunite her with the owner, which was great. And, looking back, at 11 hours, my watch told me I walked over 30,000 steps, almost 15 miles. So it was definitely not something I was expected to do that day, but I'm just glad it was a happy ending. The owner also had children, and the children were super happy that they got their family member back with them.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like that dog probably went through a lot too. I can't imagine he or she was pretty happy when he came back.
Yeah, she when she was actually caught, they actually cornered her, and she was a puppy. She was 1 year old, so she didn't bite them. She was just scared. The person that actually picked her up was like, she was 30. She smelled like she probably battled a skunk at one point. I don't know. No one knows what she went through for those 24 hours that she was out there. But I mean, she was at one point, I remember I saw her, she was following deer. I don't know if she was like, just because it's another animal, she just felt safer with them than the people trying to save her. Yep, she's back with her family.
The puppy was forced to grow up fast, I guess, after a day in the wilderness. So maybe came back a little wiser and stronger for it. But hey, we're here today to talk about 7 Deadly Sins. That is a crazy story, and I'm jealous you've got that story as one that you can tell now for the rest of your life, because that's definitely an interesting one. So 7 Deadly Sins, like I mentioned, we had a new Holy War banner that just dropped today. Executioner Zeldris is the festival unit that's on this banner. If you get to 900 gems, you can get him or Assault Meliodas. You get a choice as your guaranteed pick. There's also another new unit on this banner, and that's Mage Chandler. Now, Mage Chandler is arguably, well, it's almost a consensus that he's the better unit, but you can't get him guaranteed at any point, which is kind of frustrating and probably the sore spot for a lot of people on this banner. So keep that in mind when we go through a lot of this, because we're going to be talking about Zeldris and Chandler. But if you want to get Chandler, you might have to spend thousands of gems not get him. You might get him on your first pull. You might get him on your 100th pull. Like, who really knows? But it's always tough when you're trying to chase a unit that isn't guaranteed. And it's not like he's even a rate up. He's just regular rate. One thing to note about Chandler too is he is going to be on a future banner. JP is coming up to their second anniversary. The second anniversary banner on JP, they actually get to vote on the units that they want to be secondary units on their festival banner. And Chandler is up there. I think he's like top 3. So he's guaranteed going to be on that banner, and presumably we'll end up getting the same banner. If not, we'll be able to vote on ours too, but probably not. So we'll be getting that one probably within the next month too, that next festival banner. So when that comes, you're going to get that opportunity to get Chandler on a potentially banner that you might get a lot more value on pulling on. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but just a little fair warning for any of those that want to chase Zeldris and Chandler on the banner today. Let's talk about Zeldris first, because he is technically the featured unit. Sandy, do you want to take us through Zeldris and tell us what he's about, what his kit is and everything?
Yeah, I mean, Zeldris, again, before I start, kind of sucks that he doesn't share the cosmetics as the red Zeldris. Can share the same equipment, so, meh. But his first skill is called the Black Road, which then inflicts what quote-unquote cut damage, and cut damage is additional damage equal to 50% of the crit damage. But going back into that, so he inflicts cut damage equal to 200, 300, and 500% on the rank 3 of attack. And it cannot be a critical strike on only one enemy. So it's not a damage dealing card, right? But his second skill, which is Demonic Zone, think of that as like the Gother pumpkin bombs, but on the silver and the gold. That one is like on steroids, where it can actually disable the ultimate move. So depletes 1 orb, 2 orbs on the rank 3, and then at the end of the enemy's turn for 1, 1, and 2 turns. But going on to his ultimate, it's okay, but 630 to 945% of attack on one enemy, but then applies a debuff which decreases all enemies' HP related stats by 5 to 15% for 3 turns. So that could work out. His passive works on the back line. Okay, so his passive is called Scent of Death, and that increases allies' basic stats by 2% for every debuff applied on all enemies, limit of 10 times. So, that's 20% versus the red Zeldris that we have, which is, I think 6% per commandment that's on the field. 20, what was that? 26%. So give or take. Now his commandment doesn't work on the back line, only when he enters the field, but this one's a little tricky. So this one says, if a critical strike occurs from skill use, decreases crit chance and crit damage by 10%. Applies to both the allies and the enemies when entering battle. Excludes deathmatch, limit 3 times, so 30%. I mean, the passive might work well with Assault Meliodas, but it seems like Kyo is the better person to pair him up with that guaranteed 6 debuffs on turn 1, right? But don't expect this team to be too good, I would say. And he works. I mean, the passive works on the back line, so I'm not too mad about that. But he's not a strong damage dealer. He's a support unit, right? So HP defense gear if you've had it. And the pumpkin bombs work really well for that ult drain and just stalling. But I would say if you guys are the Assault Meliodas users out there, red Zeldris works better than this green Zeldris. But the ult drain is powerful. So buffs comparable. What do you think, Daz?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they missed the mark a little bit with this unit. He doesn't really feel like a festival unit. He's an okay unit, but he's not, the traditional power level you'd expect out of a festival unit. Like you also mentioned too, Sandy, like the red Zeldris does his job just fine. Like you don't necessarily need to chase getting a new character, having to get new cosmetics for him. When you went out, you presumably already have the red Zeldris at your disposal. And red Zeldris, he's got an ult drain on demand, which is great. I mean, Pumpkin Bombs is good, and so that the other one does have his ult control technique, but the problem is that the alt seal, which is like the ultimate move disable, which is amazing, it only comes on silver and gold, so you don't have a Gother in the Assault Melee setup, so you can't have that opportunity to rank it up if you need it, so you are relying on luck a little bit to use the alt seal card on Zeldris. So a lot of people that have used him, like they're like, hey, well, he kind of works frontline, but maybe I'll toss him in the back. If you're gonna put in the back, you might as well use red Zeldris anyways. Why are you trying to get a whole new unit? You got a level 90 now, SA5, all that kind of stuff, when you can just use one you've already been using. Like that's, to me, it fell flat a little bit. If he did a little bit more damage, maybe it'd be interesting. He really isn't a damage dealer. You can make it work a little bit on the damage side, but I don't know, like it seems like they were trying to do something to make his commandment work with his cut card. I think, Novage, you kind of noticed that there too, what they were trying to go for with the critical strikes not being able to happen on that card and his commandment not really cucking him because he doesn't have those critical strikes.
Yeah, I think probably the design behind it, they were like, let's have a commandment where everyone on the field, their crit chance and crit damage gets lowered, because I think, they were probably trying to address those units that are really powerful right now in PvP. So they're like, let's in essential throw like a counter out there or something to throw into the mix that changes things. And I think that's what was probably the thought process behind it. And they're just like, okay, but Zeldris will have a small advantage over everyone else because of that card. But I mean, like Sandy said, it's more of a support unit than really doing damage. So it's kind of like, what identity is he? But again, Daz, you hit on the nose. Why level him to 90 and super awaken him maxed out and buy new cosmetics and max those out if you've already invested in Zeldris? I don't know why, but for some reason when you guys were talking, I just thought about like, if you have a car, you just bought a car and you put some work into it and you do all these upgrades and stuff into it, and you're like, oh, the new model 2 years come out. Still slightly similar, very different changes, but you're like, all the work and effort I put on a car, would it really matter if I just buy? I mean, I think Honda does it all the time. Like all their cars are really identical from year to year to year, and there's very small changes in them. So I don't know.
That may be the best analogy we've had on the show, like ever. Not this show, but like ever. I love that because that's really just hits it on the head with what it is. It's an incremental upgrade, and maybe not even an incremental upgrade, right? I think they could have tweaked his numbers a little bit to make him a bit more impactful, and you can kind of see what they're going for. And I remember there was a lot of hype over him. Like everyone was like, "Oh, like looks like this is the unit that'll make Assault Meliodas like the most broken character ever." But then everyone's like, "Oh, he doesn't actually like do much damage." So there's give and takes, right? And they didn't give enough, I think, in that spot to make him as broken as he potentially could have been. And while the reduction in crit damage and crit chance is nice, and it can be noticeable, I don't think it's noticeable enough that it's worthwhile, again, taking him on the front. You need him on the front line for that to be active. You can't get his commandment in the back line. To bring him in the front line to displace, your Molasculas or whoever else you would have had in his stead. So, anyways, one interesting team that Sandy brought up, because you don't have to use him on a Sol Melios team. Everyone just, it's like, oh, a new demon, right? Let's see if he works on the Sol Melios team. But there are other ideas you can use with him, and Kyo is one of them. Kyo is one of the only characters that provides automatic debuffs before your turn starts on the enemies. So Sandy mentioned too, you get 6 guaranteed debuffs turn 1. If they don't cleanse, you get 12 for turn 2, right? Assuming you don't wipe them on turn 1 or whatever. But that's pretty powerful. So that'll give you that 20% increase to all your stats by turn 2. And so you can tweak Festival Zeldris to do be an attack, like a damage dealer, but it's probably not the best use for him. But between him and Kyo, you can actually get a lot of damage done with all those ignites and everything too. So there is something there, but Sandy also mentioned that's not a top tier team. It's just one that's kind of like an interesting one to try out if you're dying to use Zeldris, but probably not one that you're going to see much, if at all, in PvP.
I mean, it's interesting, like his ult, but then you really have to get him 6 out of 6. And who's going to build, he's not a priority for you to build his ult just to gain that decreasing the enemy's HP related stats by 15%. If you don't have a high ult for him, So I'm like, who's going to want to build his ult first turn or first 2 turns, right?
That's another thing they could have done. They could have given him a really sick ult, but they didn't. It's nothing crazy. So this isn't the kind of character you're going to be spending like all your gems on breaking the bank, right? To try and max out, because you probably don't need him more than 1/6, even if you did decide to get him. And like I mentioned off the top of the show, there's one big banner that will be coming up, the next festival banner, which makes the decision to skip on this banner a little bit easier. And before you even get to Mage Chandler, that's my opinion on it. I'm not sure if Sandy and Novage kind of share the same opinion on this banner, but it is a tougher one, and almost I feel like a bit of I know people use bait banner like as a word sometimes, but I feel like this is a bit of a trap, and I don't suggest people fall into it. All right, unless you
almost guys, that the people that are chasing Chandler may luck out and get 6/6 Zeldris.
Yeah, that's true. Might take it that many times. There are some good units in the banner. I guess we shouldn't gloss over those too much. Like the Ludociel's on the banner. Who else is on the banner? The Nashi. There's some commandments and stuff that some people might be vying after as well, depending on what content you're looking forward to. But so there are some good support units on this banner. It's not like the collab banners that we had, which is pretty much absolute trash beyond the collab. So, I mean, like you can take a look to the banner and see if it suits your needs. But with these festival banners, you got to be careful because those are low rates on any of the characters that you might be chasing. So getting on to Mage Chandler. This is the coveted unit on the banner, so we might spend a little bit more time talking about him. He's another blue unit, which is great, right? Like blue units these days in the current meta, except against, I guess, your Merlins. You know what? I shouldn't say we like blue units these days because there's a lot of green that's out there that's pretty strong too. But anyways, let's go over his kit. So his first skill is Dragon and Claw. Inflicts damage equal to 160, 240, 400% of his attack on one enemy, and blocks all skill effects, including skill effects on alts, for 1 turn, 2 turns on gold, excluding stance and recovery skills. So this is great. You can disable rank ups. You can disable Goddess Liz shields. There's a whole slew of things you can do. And it's a lot of people don't really think about it. And then you'll get people trying to use Gotha rank ups, not realizing they're disabled. So, the memes are real there. Second skill is called Full Counter. It's a stance that he assumes for 1 turn, 2 turns on gold, which taunts and inflicts damage equal to 200 to 450% of attack on gold if someone attacks you. And it also inflicts additional damage equal to 50, 70, or 100% of the damage taken. This hits hard in response to someone attacking him. So generally you don't want to attack into a stanced up Chandler. His alt is called Meteorworks. It's charge damage. It's an AoE charge card, 455 to 680%. It hits really hard if you've got him high alt level, but again, if you got a high alt level Chandler, you probably got a higher limit on your credit card than me. That's my dad joke for the day. His passive is he applies an effect which decreases all stats by 7% on enemies who use skills in PvP for 1 turn. That's any skill. And this can be stacked. And it also applies before the skill is used. So if someone's attacking you with a card, they get their attack stat lowered. And not only that, all stats. So like all crit damage, crit chance, all that by 7% before the attack actually comes out. And if they do twice in 1 turn, it's 14%, right? So you get a lot of damage mitigation too. And that's not just 7% less damage, it's 7% less attack, which is a much more powerful debuff to be taking. So that's only one for 1 turn, so it doesn't like continuously stack as the game goes on. It's for that single turn that the characters are attacking. But it also decreases their stats for the turn that you're attacking them as well. So Mage Chandler. Novage, what are your initial thoughts on this guy?
I personally, I do want him. Am I going to chase after him on this banner? Can I wait? I guess that's the ultimate question. Can I wait? I think he's a great unit. He's definitely going to mix up stuff in the PvP. It's kind of nice because if you guys all remember the last Fane meta, everyone was like, hey, it's the same team over and over. I feel like I'm not fighting the same team as much anymore. I do see every, they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember, this team again, or every other team at least, or it's different. And that's kind of fun. It kind of keeps you on your toes. So, just adding another unit that's going to kind of create different team setups is going to be nice and fun. I personally enjoy counter units. So Estarossa is a fun unit, and the ones that taunt actually, so like Estarossa and Chandler are definitely units that I think have so much potential. More like a defense is your attack is your attack strategy and stall.
I actually really hope that everyone skips this banner because I haven't had a chance to build up my ReZero units, my Amelia, who I really wanted to make my main team. And the problem with Chandler and the team that is kind of shaking out with him is that it totally counters your Amelias of the world. So I'm hoping no one really pulls on this banner so we don't see like a ton of Chandlers in PvP. So in a way, it's kind of nice from a selfish standpoint for me that we're not going to be seeing a lot of Chandlers, fingers crossed, because it is a harder banner to get him on. So maybe a lot of people will be skipping on this one and waiting for that next bit down the road. So, or so for that anniversary festival banner that I mentioned he's going to be on in about a month's time. So the best team that's shaking out for Chandler is Chandler, Tarmiel, Green Gother, and Estarossa in the back line. And when you see Chandler, you'll probably see him either on the Assault Meliodas team because he does slot in there pretty easily as well, and that's a bit more of a no-brainer. But this team is the real toxic one and probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, potential PvP team that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of weeks. Now, the real reason this team works is because of Estarossa's passive, which means that if a unit uses a stance card, they get debuff immunity, right? I mentioned that this completely counters Amelia teams because as soon as Tarmiel or Chandler stance up, they get debuff immunity, so you can't freeze them, you can't stun them. It just becomes really difficult, and there's so much damage mitigation between Chandler's passive and Tarmiel's stance card. It just becomes so difficult to wear that team down and frustrating. It's a tough team to make work, though, because you really do need to rely on your alt damage to confirm kills. It's a very low damage output team outside of the alts. Like Tarmiel's alt is actually one of the win conditions here. So you need to have Tarmiel or maybe Chandler's alt at a very high, 5-6-6 kind of level if you want to have that situation where you can actually win by the end of the day. There's so much alt control too with Tarmiel's got his alt drain, right? it's and then Green Gother's got his alt drain as well. So basically that's what they do. They stall out, survive until Tarmiel can actually hit really hard with their ult. So it's a frustrating comp to play against. I can see a lot of people who pull for Chandler going this route. And it also works well against some Meliodas too, because all those defense break debuffs can be removed really easily by Chandler or by Tarmiel as well. So it'll be interesting to see how many of these we see in the meta, but I really hope we don't come across any. Sandy, what do you think? Are you going to, well, I don't know if you're going to be trying to get Chandler, but is this a team that you're going to be scared to come up across in PvP?
I mean, it's a stall team, so you got to really pay attention to the match. The stance, if any of you have the blue dairy, she's still useful. She can take away that stance on a rank 3. And their alt drain. And if this team, the Chandler, Tarmiel, Green Gother, they're going to depend on building their alts, then having Nanashi, I use Nanashi in the back line, and he stalls alts if you don't know that he's in the back line. And I use Blue Dairy in the front line. So I'm curious to see if I'd be able to keep my PvP team and I'll go up against this team, but it will be a long match. You're going to get to that point where the little guy is like, here, you guys are taking too long. So just die.
It's always interesting when you see these new comps come out, people come up with counter comps to them. And I mean, Sandy, you're just kind of like your go-to comp can potentially be a counter comp. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of stuff works out. And a lot of people, they have this fear to think outside the box, right? They're used to seeing, okay, these are the meta teams. This is what you need to do, right? If you want to win, but there are sometimes off meta teams that do well. Like Sandyy always pushes for Blue Dairy area and Nanashi for good reason, because they do have a lot of utility and they can counter a lot of PvP teams that people aren't expecting to. So in terms of gearing, HP defense, I think for both these characters, both Chandler and Zeldris. Zeldris you can build out for attack, but again, he's more of a support unit, and Chandler definitely is a support unit. You want him to live as long as possible when he's got that counter card with his taunts. So I don't know. Any final thoughts, Novage, before we move on to our next topic?
No, I think you guys hit all the points. I'm still just going back to, can I wait for another banner for Chandler? Because I think the back-to-back collabs, if how many rotations you did on the ReZero banner and you got that refund of gems, is that enough for you to throw at this banner? I mean, it depends. It's like, if obviously the whales of the community will be pulling and they'll be posting videos if they haven't already. The average player, I think it is a tough decision. If you're like a dolphin, I would say, like, can you wait? Can you utilize or save up your resources? And give Daz a break in PvP, and so there's no Chandlers out there for his Amelia team.
Yes, please.
Are you pulling Daz?
No, not a single gem. The free multi. Maybe I'll get lucky. We'll get Chandler in the free multi. Wouldn't that be something? But yeah, no, I don't think it's worthwhile. I don't spend a ton in the game, so I want to make sure that the gems I do have get maximum value. But Novage, you mentioned we had 2 back-to-back collabs. It's been tough on a lot of people, including some popular YouTubers and community content creators have all said that they're starting to feel game fatigue. And I've noticed it in our Discord community as well. People mentioning, reiterating the exact same thing. It seems like this game is getting grindier and grindier every day. We got not only a lot of pulling that everyone's had to do, so presumably spending a lot of gems and potentially their hard-earned money, but we've got SA5 that came out a few weeks ago, and we've got level 90, which just dropped today, new demon raids, which are tough as hell. Oh my goodness. Will the grind never end? That's the real question. And it's led to some frustrated folk, right, Sandy? What do you think?
I would say so. I mean, the content that they're putting out isn't really friendly for the free-to-play players. This is like end game material that, like the new demon. you can't just, you're going to have to rely on your friends who are high levels or know what they're doing. And sometimes maybe people who are just testing out the game, they're not going to know these strategic, moves and to do this and to kill by turn 3. So I would get super frustrated if, I join a random and I think, oh, this is my first week playing 7DS, and all of a sudden you can't kill and you're stuck in the game for 10, 15 minutes and you don't get any drops, nothing. I just think Netmarble is just really making it hard for the free-to-play community, especially with the content that's coming out. And you have to spend money to win, and it's getting tiring. My wallet's tired.
Can we talk about the level 90 rates for a little bit? Because I was trying to do it with randoms today, and it is not easy. I'm really hoping that people generally figure out the strategy. I did a lot of research prior to today to know what to expect on most difficulties, but just some of the things that people are doing, you're just oh my gosh, you're just throwing this away. Or people quitting early because they think you're doing it wrong when you're actually doing it right. And it's very, and there's everyone wants to get their units level 90, right? So there's this big thirst for these demons. And I'm willing to put up with people that don't know what they're doing, because I need those Belmos cores or whatever they're called to get my units to level 90. But oh my gosh, it's ever a frustrating experience today. Have either of you guys tried running them yet?
Yeah, I yesterday, I after the update, I decided I'm just going to jump in there. And I haven't really watched the videos recently. I saw way back when he came out on JP, and I just don't remember. There's so many different team comps coming, best team, or all this stuff, right? So I'm just going to go in there. You know what? I'm just going to, I went to my team to edit. I was just auto select, boom, just throws on whatever. And I kind of adjusted it a little bit. I'm I'm just going to go in there and see if I didn't even want to do hell, because I was I'm just going to do extreme. I'm going to invite someone from my friends list, AI, just to see. And okay, they have Esterosa on there, Green Goddess Liz and Green Gother. I don't know who they had in the back. So I went, and this is extreme. And, my CC for my team was 260 or something. So it's because it auto selects the best people. So I went in there, plus the AI, and I didn't win. Of course, the one was one of the ones that was selected, and he just doesn't do well. Obviously, you need stance removal at some point or something, because that also was annoying. And yeah, and then I adjusted my team through Esterosa in there. Still, again, kind of just judging of what they would use with how they would do it with Esterosa. I don't remember how the videos are supposed to play, but I was able to win. It was definitely a longer fight than it should have been. But yeah, it's typically what I do when they throw boss raids at us for the events. I usually just pick the strongest people going there and just steamroll through it perfectly fine. But this one you can't. Not even on extreme.
Little PSA for anyone out there, because the problem is there's a lot of content you're going to find today, tomorrow, probably all this week on how to do the new raid or whatever, and all these different strats and everything too. There's really one strat that kind of permeates throughout all this that I think is really going to bubble to the surface, and it really just relies on having a strong damage dealer on each side, either Jericho or Zaratros, having Gother on one side each, one of the sides as well, and then a Danafor Liz and a couple Green Gothers. And really, you just alt rush to turn 3. You remove that stance with Halbram. The other person who doesn't have Halbram, they do their alt thing, get through phase 1. You use damage dealing cards on phase 2, and you alt and stuff through phase 2 and phase 3 to get through it all. But that's I feel like I shouldn't be explaining this strat with an audio only format, but don't try and doing these fancy 3-turn strats that have a lot of RNG, because no one else is going to be able to do those. And I guess that's kind of my point in all this. Just try and find the accepted strat, which is a little flexible, especially if you want to do it with random people, because it's going to be, your life's going to be hell. Like I said, Zaratros, if you have a high level, or Jericho are solid characters. You don't need level 90 of them. You don't need UR gear. You probably need SA4, maybe SA5, depending on how good your gear is. But just kind of go with those. And if you know what, you can't do hell, just do extreme or do hard or do normal. Normal is actually fairly easy. I've done some with a few randoms, so that's doable, and you get your cores, right? Don't feel like you gotta do the top the top challenging content day one. Like extreme and hell, like yeah, you get more with hell, but you do still get a lot of those cores with extreme as well. So just something to kind of keep in mind. You don't have to push the highest level content. It'll get easier over time, especially as you level 90 characters and people get more familiar with the accepted strategies.
Yeah, but I just feel like the level 90 and trying to get our characters to level 90, who has time to just wait on the phone, wait for these random invites, and you're spending the majority of your time just grinding. And it's such a difficult boss too. It's not, I don't know. I'm tired just thinking about it. I haven't tried, but
well, there's so much pressure to get your unit. If you're in PvP right now, there's such a big advantage to having units level 90 when no one else really does. So if you sit there all day and yeah, you have the time, or if you have the money too, because they do have packs that you can buy to like cheat 3 of your characters up to level 90 on day one, which is another discussion too, which is kind of a slimy thing that Marble did because they didn't do that on JP. They gave it a couple of weeks to let everyone have to do the same grind. But yeah, like it's such a big advantage. There's such like that big push where everyone feels that need to do it to compete. And it's just, there's too much stress, I think, involved in that, which makes it a very difficult pill to swallow. On JP, you had a week of being able to grind kind of casually and get these cores built up so that when level 90 did drop, you could actually, maybe level up a few characters, your PvP team, so everyone's kind of on the same footing. But it feels a little bit scattered today, and it's frustrated a lot of people. And I've talked to a couple of people that have like, they're on the verge of like wanting to quit because it's just a frustrating experience. But just getting into all this game fatigue talk too. Not only that, but one thing that I think that Netmarble needs to do probably fairly soon too is what a lot of gacha games do over time. The valuable resources, like let's say like your anvils, hammers, that kind of thing, that were really hard to get on day one when they got released, they should be easier to get over time. And anvils and hammers are, and purple stones, they are like, I remember when anvils first came out, like you get like 50 a week if you're lucky, right? From your guild boss or whatever. Now you can get hundreds a week just from like doing stuff. So that's a good progression, but they haven't done that for certain aspects of the game, like cosmetic upgrade materials, for instance, right? The demon raids, I think, is the biggest thing they need to do some sort of quality of life change for, because you need to grind for like a solid few weeks with bonus cosmetics to like increase your drop rates for things, just to like max out a character's cosmetics. They really need to scale back either the number of demons you're doing or increase the drop rates, because they're adding on these more and more grindy things, but they're not like taking away grinds from other places, which is what they should do. You add on a new level in one spot, you gotta take back a bit of a grind from another, because there's only so many hours in the day. Like we all have jobs or school or whatever, and free time is at a premium. I don't want to sit there in front of a screen doing demons for like an hour a day, and like that's something that most people have to do if you want to compete. And that's something that I think they really need to work on. Hopefully they will over the next month or two.
I think Daz, you definitely made a point where they're just adding another layer of grinding, in a sense that obviously I'm sure they still want new player base and people that's been playing for a couple of weeks to a month. If they're stuck doing the normal grinding we've already been used to, they're never going to get to the new grinding sessions anytime soon. It's almost like just get your player base, the lower ones, quicker up to the higher end game content, where most of us are sitting at now. People, like you're saying, content creators are talking about fatigue, and if people are exiting, I mean, what are they doing to like make sure that the player base community still stays at a decent level, that you're able to still interact with people, or like, people leaving guilds, like there's these other people are still kind of in a sense fresh, but still want to play the game because they haven't been playing it for over a year. They've been playing it for 6 months, 4 months. But if they're stuck grinding these demons to get their box and their characters, they're never going to make it to be doing these new raids or this new content that they're throwing out that's so grindy on top of the additional demon grinds we're already doing.
Guilds, right? And speaking of guilds, not only are people trying to grind to get their PvP characters up to par to level 90, but now you've got guild wars for those, that small little community Netmarble has offered it to. It's like, hey, we're setting up defenses, but you've got 2 days basically to go up against other guilds who, might have deep pockets and can get all their characters to level 90. So dang, way to extract money. But at the same time, I'm tired of that. Like, give us a break or give us new content that's not grinding content.
It's tough. I feel like there's been a divergence of the amount of quality of life improvements to the amount of grind. And like those kind of have to go in parallel to a certain extent. Like they have been improving quality of life over time, but there's been such an increase to the grind recently, but not a big jump in the quality of life. So I think that gap is getting wider, right? Like we've had a lot of cool things. Like, can you imagine the time where skip tickets didn't exist? I can't. That'd be horrible. But like the things like that, right? Like let people skip demons. Like, wouldn't that just be an elegant solution to all this? So things like that, like they need to come up with ways to make it improve people's quality of life. It's a game, for God's sakes. It's not supposed to be a job or feel stressful or whatever. People do this to get away from the stress of life, to get away from the people breaking down at the funnel cake station, right? So you want to make sure that this is an escape, because that's what games are meant for, to be games. Anything more to add on this topic, guys? Or are you guys ready to move on to the next section?
Real quick, you did mention how content creators were getting, worn out or fatigued. I'm sure everyone's seen it in your channels that you follow on your YouTube, that so many of the 7DS ones are jumping onto the My Hero stuff, and I feel like they're just doing that just to expand their audience. I don't think they're really jumping. Some may, because if they feel like they're getting more of a response. I think a big portion. Other than this, I don't content create, but I mean, you probably have people that work really hard, but they were after the boom of the 7DS community that they didn't really get to the top, and they're taking longer to push their content. Because some of the scores I'm part of, you see that there's so many people trying to push their content, but just because they weren't at the start or the boom of the game, they kind of missed out on that big push of being able to get, a lot of followers in a sense. So, this new game that just came out, last week, they're probably just testing the waters to see if they get a better response and a bigger boost there. But who knows, I personally enjoy a game where I'm able to not have to pay too much attention to and know when I have to pay attention to. I think My Hero game is pretty well built, has great graphics and stuff, but I don't know if I could have the attention time for the battles when I'm battling. So,
talking about like people potentially exiting the game for greener pastures or whatever. This isn't the first time. Like the Genshin Impact was another big title that released after 7DS, and there was a bit of a dabbling in the waters there, right? Like some content creators went over to that game, some tried it out, decided it wasn't for them, and came back, right? At the end of the day, if Seven Deadly Sins is a game that you enjoy and it's something that you like who cares what anyone else says, right? Just do what you think is right, what you enjoy doing, and don't let content creators, don't let us either influence your decision too much. Like, this is your life. Content creators like to bring up things, right? And like potentially controversial topics and discuss them, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily impacts you. And like, just because it's something that's being talked about this week, it doesn't mean that things are different this week than they were last necessarily, right? So just something to kind of keep in mind, I guess. And this isn't a dead game. I used to play Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. I think I started playing it like 5 or 6 years ago. It's still around. Summer's War, I played that years and years ago. It's still around. Like, people say dead game all the time, but like all sorts of gacha games, and they stick around. And Seven Deadly Sins, if you look at the revenue sheet for Netmarble, it's making a ton of money. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So please don't listen to people. They say, "Oh, dead game, everyone's leaving," because it's not. It's just not true. That's not the case. It's just people like to. It's good to keep Netmarble accountable a little bit. Like make a little bit of noise. So hopefully they're like, okay, well maybe we should increase the quality of life a little bit. So maybe that's kind of like what we're doing here, stirring the pot a little bit. Making a cake. Hopefully Netmarble will put in the oven and bake it for us. Okay, moving on to the featured comment of the week. Sandy, you want to take us through that?
Yeah, featured comments. Every week we do these comments wherever you leave the comments for us. And this week I actually chose the featured comment. Comes from YouTube, from Miguel Garcia. And he said, I love Milim, but with no weapon cosmetics and 0% pierce, she can easily get patience when she attacks. Personally, at least Miguel didn't slam me for including Milim in my top 10 list. Okay, Daz and Novage. Noted that it was purely a personal preference because I love her too. So thank you for the comment. I mean, it's nice when other people love Milim just like I do.
I am impressed how much shade you avoided because like I thought you were going to get some people just hacking on your choice for Milim there, but turns out me and Novage were your harshest critics last week. So, but yeah, I mean, if you didn't get a chance to see your last episode, Sandy did a top 10 collab units list, her own curated list, and Milim was there on number 10 and probably the most controversial, at least from mine and Novage's point of view, selection. But again, it's a list that's personal to Sandy, and you know, stick to your guns. Don't let anyone else tell you the way things should be. Okay.
Game time?
I think it is game time. So we're going to do 20 questions. And I apologize to those of you that like the trivia and the Jeopardy and the sound clips games that we do. 20 questions is the one that we do when I don't have enough time to prepare the other games. It's been a really busy day, and where we had a holiday up here in Canada yesterday. It was Victoria Day weekend, so usually after long weekends, it gets busy at work for me on Tuesdays. So anyhow, 20 questions. The way this works is same as the 20 questions you probably played as a kid. I think of something in my head, and Sandy and Novage have 20 questions, but we don't really count, to ask yes or no questions of me until they get the answer right. It's a team game, but somehow it's going to get competitive like it always does. I've got 3 different things I'm going to be thinking of. One's a person, and again, person's just like a living thing, place, and one thing. So Sandy, do you want to choose person, place, or thing first?
Place.
Place. Okay. Ask your questions.
Guess I'll start. Is it a place? Sorry.
It is a place.
Is it a place? No, that doesn't count as my question. Can you buy food from this place?
Yes, you can. But that might be slightly misleading. But continue. Novage, what do you think?
Is this place a city?
No. Oh, I saw you be like, what? Sandy, I threw you for a loop with that one, didn't I? What's your follow-up question? It's not.
Is this place in the sky?
No.
Damn.
I have no idea what you're thinking of there, but it is not in the sky. At least I don't think it is.
Is this place in the fairy forest?
No.
Oh man. Is this place oh my gosh. Huh. Is this place oh my gosh, I can't come up with the question right now. Can you skip? Go Novage.
Do you guys need a hint? I feel like you might even need a hint. I thought you were going to get like within a few questions after that first one, Sandy. It sells food. It sells food. It's in games. Try and think of the different places that sell food.
It's all the towns.
No, it's not. But you asked if it was one of the towns, and I said, no, it's not one of the towns. Okay, I'll give you another hint. You guys guessed this as one of the places in the previous 20 questions, which gave me the idea for it. So it was incorrect last time. Oh, it's throwing you for a loop, isn't it?
Is it the Boar Hat Tavern?
It is not the Boar Hat Tavern. That was the answer one time. It was that time. It was that one. That episode where the answer was the Boar Hat Tavern. You guessed this other place first, and it was incorrect. But this time it is actually correct. So you're flipping the script.
Is this place in Leonis?
I actually don't know. I'd presumably, maybe, I don't know. Oh man, I'm gonna give you guys one more question, then I think I'm gonna have to move on to the next one for the sake of the audience and the torture. Nova, do you have any more questions here?
Man, I can't think of. I guess I'm more stuck now trying to remember the answers we said in the previous.
Okay,
one.
well, I'm giving up on you guys officially. It's got to be close to 20 questions now. So it's just the knighthood hall, like the guild hall.
Ah.
No, it's just head slapping for sure, that one. Yeah, because you can buy food from the little vendor person there, right? Like, I think, right?
You're right.
Yeah, you can buy food of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that one went spectacularly wrong. Let's try the other ones. Person or thing? Let's go person because it's easy. So, okay, Novage, you want to ask the first question? This one shouldn't be hard.
Yeah. Is this person a demon of the demon race?
Yes.
Is this person a female?
No. Oh, I like how you're funneling in towards the answer already. I can feel it.
Is this person one of the 10 commandments?
Yes. Whoa. We're already down to like minimal options because there are female 10 commandments you've already scratched off the list. So,
Okay.
come on.
Is this person a giant?
Who's going to get it? No. When you're being that specific, why don't you just ask if it's droll?
Oh, sorry.
You're just teeing up Novage to get it right.
He's not a demon though, so it's very limited. So is this person Zeldris?
No.
Is this person Chandler?
No. I did have to pause a little bit when you asked me if he was a demon. So just kind of keep that in mind because I guess it is questionable.
Is this person?
Is this person Esterosa?
It is Esterosa. So yeah, like again, without spoiling it, traditionally he's demon, and in the game he's demon. So let's just keep it at that. Perfect. So Novage is winning, I guess, if anyone's winning, right? Because he slid in there out of turn. He jumped in out of turn and decided to call out for Esteros. Okay, this next one's a little bit more difficult. And gauging by how easy I thought the place one would be, I really hope this one's not going to be tough. So this is a thing. A thing. That's like so vague. So vague. I wonder if I should give you a hint just to like kind of kick you off in the right direction. It's a thing on somebody.
It's a thing on somebody. Is this thing an animal?
No.
Is this thing a weapon?
No.
Is this thing wings?
No. I do like the way you guys are going, though. I feel more confident we'll get there eventually.
Is this thing a crown?
No, but it does go on. Well, it's in the head region. It's in the head region.
Is this thing horns?
No.
This thing glasses?
No. By the way, you guys are pretty vague. Like if it was glasses, I wouldn't accept glasses as the answer because it's a very specific thing. But
specific thing.
Okay, like come on, people. What's like the primary thing on everybody's heads for the most part?
Hair. Is this thing hair?
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, you're close. You're halfway there. You know it's hair. Now, whose hair is it?
Is it Chandler's hair?
Yes! Amazing jump of logic there, Novage. Oh, man. You just blew my mind. You went from hair straight to Chandler's hair. I guess like it is pretty like epic hair. But that is the correct response. So you know what, Sandy? I'm sorry. I have to give this one a Novage. If for nothing else, the fact that you just got Chandler's hair without having to ask any follow-up questions. Oh, man, that was amazing. Okay. What a perfect place to end off the show. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today at the Boar Hat Tavern, a Severely Deadly Sins Grand Cross podcast. We stream the show live on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Boar Hat Tavern every week on Tuesday afternoons at 1 p.m. Pacific time. I had to think about it because I have the old time written down. We are doing new times, and this is probably going to be a regular time, at least for the near future. So just something to keep in mind. Sandy, where can people find you and your YouTube content? I haven't seen any YouTube videos for a while, too. I know you've been busy at work, but I'm going to put you on the spot for that.
I know. I feel so bad. Thank you for all my subscribers. My 3,000 subscribers. I'm still getting them now. But soon, I'm going to try to survive Memorial Day weekend. But you will find me on YouTube after Memorial Day weekend, Sandy with a double Y, 70S.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us anytime at podcast@boarhattavern.com, or you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Boar Hat Tavern. All three of us are members of the Global Guild Denied, part of the Scoundrels Alliance. If you'd like to join our ranks, reach out to us. You reach out to us on Instagram, Twitter, send us an email. You probably figure out where our Discord is if you look. And we can definitely go through that process, get you into our ranks. You can also subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to listen to your podcasts online. You can also find our shows on our website at boarhattavern.com. And oh my gosh, how have I still not finished doing that yet? It's been 18 episodes. We'd like to thank Madeline Marois for crafting our killer logo, Streetwise Rhapsody from YouTube for composing our awesome cover to the Grand Cross theme song that we used for our intro, and Andre Bobet of ArtStation, who was so gracious to let us use his outstanding 3D renders of the Boar Hat Tavern. I still don't understand how he made those like so well, by the way, that we use for our pre-live and post-video splash screens. You can find all of their work in the websites, in the description, wherever you're listening to or watching this. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Bye.